Not too long ago, DJI has just unleashed the Osmo Pocket 2. Now, what I have here is actually the Osmo Pocket 1, which was loaned to me by my older sibling to be able to test out today. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm giving it serious consideration porting over the Osmo Pocket 2 for my RX100 Mark V. I have two choices, either going with the Sony ZV-1, which is an upgrade from the RX100V, or go over to the Osmo Pocket 2, which costs about $700. If you are curious on the specs, here are the specs of these two cameras. These two will be able to give me a good experience on what it's like to having either the Sony or the DJI Pocket 2. What really irks me about RX100V is that it doesn't have very stable footage. It does have the intelligent active, but once I compare it with some of the footage taken from this Osmo Pocket 1, the stability on Osmo Pocket 1 is really enticing. Now, the stabilization that this camera has is actually all software based from this RX100V. It has intelligent active, which you guys have sourced in my previous video which I tried out, which is okay, but it's a far cry from this little gimbal camera. What you have here on the Osmos is basically a little gimbal in the palm of your hand. How small it is, look, when I put it right beside my hand, you can see that it's significantly smaller. Although a RX100 is already small, but this one provides so much convenience along with the ability to stabilize all your shots physically rather than in the software. Now, in terms of quality, I've no doubt that the RX100 will produce a slightly better footage comparing with this little camera here. This little camera here has only a 1/2.3 inch sensor compared with this RX100 which has a 1 inch sensor. So in low light and in certain details, I'm sure the RX100 will definitely perform slightly better. Now, if the footage is really not watchable due to its shakiness, then actually photo quality isn't that important, right? Now, even though I know that this is the Osmo Pocket 1 and the Osmo Pocket 2 has a further upgrade in terms of quality and even the focal range, but today we are just going to be looking at usability of the footage that we're going to be shooting outdoors today. So without further ado, let's bring these two and head on out. Hi guys, so we're out in the park today and we're gonna see how the stabilization as well as some of the footages look like. But if you're curious on the setup I have today, on how I stick these two side by side to have a fair comparison, this is behind the scenes. So if you're curious, this is how it looks like. Actually, there's a park behind my house and it's very near the highway. If you guys can hear clearly, there's actually some background noises as well as the cars that are moving. So as I head on to the flight of stairs, take notice on how stable the footage is and whether you can tell the difference. But in all fairness, what I'm shooting here is the Osmos 1 and the Osmos 2 does have a wider angle view. Whereas my RX100 is fixed on probably a 28 or 26mm footage. So here we are shooting actually at the 1080p mode. I'm not very sure if 4K does have a very huge difference, but this footage is just to be able to compare the stabilization. How do you guys find? Leave down in the comments below how do you think about the footage so far. Okay, when I mentioned that there's cars behind, okay, once I tilt back, this is actually what I mean. There's literally a highway behind me. Over here, so far the low light, I would say that the RX100 performs slightly better, but isn't a very huge difference in terms of quality between these two. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the stabilization of the Osmo Pocket does make up for the lack of a slight image quality in the RX100. Wow, if you guys have just heard just now, I'm actually running out of breath just from a small flight of stairs. Okay, I guess now is probably the best audio comparison as you hear me giving a voiceover for this footage and you can hear the background sound. How does it feel and how does the audio sound like? Alright, now we'll be heading on back down. So one advantage I must say about the RX100 is that it definitely has a larger screen compared with my Osmo Pocket 1, which is slightly smaller. But I do know that the newer Osmo Pocket does have a wider angle lens, which will help you to have a wider view. Which to me is really important because sometimes when you're just doing vlogging, you want an all-in-one package rather than having a separate lens to be able to be attached onto it. It's also amazing that this Osmo Pocket 1 has a touchscreen, comparing with my RX100V which does not have a touchscreen, which costs nearly $1,000. So let's just have a static shot on the environment to be able to see the image quality. And let's just have a close-up of this tree to be able to see if you can see the texture. In all fairness, this little test footage that I'm doing right here is just mainly to test out the stability and maybe the image quality. There are other functions which I did not mention, perhaps the time lapse of the RX100 and perhaps the gimbal movements of the Osmo Pocket. So do take that in mind that this is not a very thorough review, but just an overlook. Mainly it's actually just for me to make a decision on whether to move on to my Osmo Pocket 2 or not. But so far, I must say, the image stabilization of the Osmos really looks very stable. Alright, here's the walking footage of the RX100 and the Osmo Pocket. Okay, now I'm trying to run a little. Alright, so now we are shooting in 4K in 25 FPS, and I do see a slight dim in the screen of the RX100V comparing with the Osmo Pocket. Oh my god, if you guys just saw, I just landed the screen and yes, the screen has just cracked. Thankfully, it was only the front screen that cracked, and it wasn't too expensive to fix. Well, at least it's able to turn on. Now let's head on back for the conclusion. So as you can see, it really makes a difference in terms of the steadiness of the footage. Now let's talk a bit about the screens itself. Now, although the RX100 has definitely a larger screen, this Osmo Pocket has a small screen, and once you put it side by side, you can see that the screen on the RX100, although is bigger, but the screen on the smaller one is actually touchscreen. You can actually touch to focus, which is really great and allows you other functions such as tilting up and tilting down. Compared to this RX100, which you just have to physically just do the panning or tilting motion, which is a little bit inconsistent due to the handshakes and the jitters which your body naturally just produces. Now, although the RX100 does have a bigger screen to be able to compose your shot for more cinematic photos and videos, but the screen here to me is rather sufficient. So in terms of the usability, this gimbal is also very easy to use. I myself have the Zhiyun Crane M1 and the Weeble S, and although this is the DJI brand, the gimbal is not a far cry in terms of usability and the functions itself. It still has the lock mode and the POV mode, which makes things a lot easier when this whole gimbal is only at the palm of your hand. It's really small and it's so discreet. Once we put these two side by side once again, you can see the size difference. Now let's talk about audio. Although the RX100V over here does not have any ability to plug in any audio, its older sibling the ZV-1 does. But you have to get them externally, which will definitely cost you a lot more. Now the Osmo Pocket 1, you need to get external devices to plug the audio in, but the Osmo Pocket 2, if you get the creative package, comes with this wireless mic, which is definitely so much more convenient if you are going out and vlogging and it's all in one whole package. Even with the creative package, it only costs about $700, which if you are planning to get the ZV-1, the upgrade of this, it costs nearly about $900. So overall, I'm definitely leaning towards getting the Osmo Pocket 2 as it has a physical gimbal, comparing with the RX100 or the ZV-1, which has stabilization but is done in software. So basically means your footage will definitely have a slight crop to it, comparing with the Osmo Pocket. So I hope you guys like this quick comparison between these two little cameras over here. It's definitely made my decision so much more clearer. If you guys like this kind of video, do give me a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet, and hit the bell notification over here so you'll be updated of my next upload. Once I get my DJI Osmo Pocket 2, I'll definitely do an unboxing and you guys want to stick around for it. If you guys can't wait for my next video, do check out my gear playlist over here, which I cover out different reviews. If not, I'll see you guys in the next video.